I think without bringing our deep African cultural history and spirit into what we do, that we cannot be successful because we bring somebody else's spirit and ethic into what we're doing. And by bringing the spirit and ethic really of Europeans into what we do, then we are evoking their success.
Dr. Akil Kokayi Khalfani is an American sociologist, author, educator, and political activist. He is the director of the Africana Institute and associate professor of sociology, and is widely known for his work for cultural decolonization, panafricanism, and social transformation within the African diaspora.
I think we have three centers as humans. We have our head, our heart, and our gut. And we have to combine the marriage between those three things. The head is the one that analyzes. The heart is the emotive thing that gives you the emotional signal where to go. And the gut is the instinct. You're tapping into the ancestors at your gut level. And so then when you make decisions and you use all three of those, we're much more balanced. If you're using one of those, you might think you're on the right path, but you're not actually balanced. And so then I think that if we can teach the youth those kinds of things, then they can be balanced in their decisions and be wiser in leading us forward.
Dr. Akil Kokayi Khalfani, thank you for your presence at this 9th Pan-African Congress. Today you brought to the stage the spirit of our ancestors, the wisdom of W.E.B. Du Bois, and a powerful call to stop like an elephant, to crush the remnant of colonialism. Let's continue this reflection together. So we welcome you in the Notre Afrique, the voice of African diplomacy.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So let's begin with the Congress itself. What does this 9th Pan-African Congress mean to you, especially in 2025 at this critical point in African and global history?
Mm-hmm. So to me, this Congress symbolizes the great potential of African people around the globe. That this is a continuation, as I said, of Du Bois and of Nkrumah and of Marcus Garvey. And so we have their ideas, their histories, the experiences that we now have the responsibility to take to the next level. How do we execute at a greater way the things that they've started? So that's what this space and time and place means. They couldn't dream to have a conference this big. They had conferences, but they were much, much smaller. And so now we have the authority of a government that has the wherewithal and the finances to organize such a conference. And so now that gives us the strength and the possibility of creating greatness.
Thank you. In your intervention, you evoke the deep power of African spirituality and ancestral memory. What is it so important to root Pan-Africanism today in spiritual and cultural rituals like libation and invocation?
I think without bringing our deep African cultural history and spirit into what we do, that we cannot be successful because we bring somebody else's spirit and ethic into what we're doing. And by bringing the spirit and ethic really of Europeans into what we do, then we are evoking their success and our demise. So our traditional African ways of doing, thinking, and being are central. I mentioned about Mbongi. Mbongi is an African way of thinking about governance, not a European way. We have all of our own ways that we've been doing for thousands and thousands of years. And Europeans came a few hundred years ago and implanted their ways of doing and thinking. And now we have to cleanse our brains. We have to, some people may say we've been brainwashed. I say we've been brain dirtied with white supremacy. And so now we have to change those negative things and come up with the ideas that are our own, tap into our DNA, tap into our ancestors, tap into our spirituality, and bring that forward in ways that are powerful and transformative.
As we are speaking about Mbongi, and also you spoke about Ubuntu as African philosophy of governance, how can this be reintroduced to revalorized in our political institution, especially within the African Union or regional bodies?
So the key for doing that is that we really have to think about what I'm going to be talking about later, and that is looking at Africana studies and utilizing an African way of thinking and educating young folks from the first grade all the way up to college about an African way of thinking. We have to decolonize our minds. Our minds have been colonized by European thinking. And so you go to, leave from here to Togo and you go to Nigeria, and the Togolese know little about the Nigerians. The Nigerians know little about the Kenyans. The Kenyans know almost nothing about the Ethiopians. We don't have a Pan-Africanist idea and thinking, but those same people can go to the United States, can go to France, can go to England and tell you all about it. And the same is true in the diaspora. We have the same colonial slave mentality that you go to the average person in the United States, they can't tell you much about what's going on in Burkina Faso, what's going on in Sierra Leone, or even name all of the countries. I think those are the key things to transform our way of thinking and doing, is that we implement a new form of education that is a Pan-Africanist education from the beginning all the way up to college.
Very interesting. And you also, as you're saying, you instituted that colonization was not only physical, but mental, a war against African mind. In your view, what are the modern tools of that mental colonization, and how do we break them?
Mm-hmm. So we first have to identify that it wasn't just European ways of thinking and doing that were there. We have been, it's been imposed upon us that their modalities are better, that their modalities are accurate, and that ours are not. Europeans would suggest to you that their ways of thinking are rational and holistic, but in fact, they are not. And some of the things that they present as their own are actually African. And so that as the progenitors of knowledge, even the idea of the computer is core to African thinking. The computer at its base uses ones and zeros, which is a binary system. And that ones and zeros comes from the Europeans who were studying African systems all the way back to divination systems, which are binary. Yoruba divination system, San divination system, all are binary. And so the computer is based on that. So the computer ideas are actually African.
Very impressive. And you quoted W.E.B. Du Bois and said the problem of the 21st century remains the color line. How do you think Du Bois' vision can still guide our movement in 2025?
Yeah, so that Du Bois's idea, over 125 years ago now, really gave us the tools to see what oppression looked like at that time. And I think what he tasks us to do today is to think about what it is that continues to plague us. And so I would say that racism obviously is clearly still there. We also have some internal things that we need to question, look at, and address, how we govern, how we, the foods that we eat. We need to be holistic in our approach. And maybe Du Bois wouldn't have said this, but I think that if we take his and we learn from him, that we would have to have a Pan-Africanism of art and culture, Pan-Africanism of education, Pan-Africanism of business, a Pan-Africanism of diets and food growing. And if we had a more comprehensive way that we grew our food, a Pan-African medicine. We have doctors all over the world who leave Africa and get paid at top positions around the globe, but most of them don't use any African traditions, right? So what are the African medicines that a Babalao may prescribe to give to someone, a concoction to heal them? And why do our doctors, who are well-trained in Western medicine, not use those? We need to re-Africanize those kinds of things so that we have healing modalities and methods that are indigenous to our DNA, that are indigenous to our ways of our ancestral memory. Right? We need to call upon our ancestral memories. The elders say this life is one of remembering.
Our life is one and maybe remembering.
Yes.
That's very powerful. You ended your speech with the powerful symbol of the African elephant. memory with resistance.
Yes.
What does it mean for us individually and collectively to stop like an elephant or stand like an elephant today?
Yeah. So the only thing I didn't say in that speech was that if we compare the elephant to a peacock, the peacock is beautiful. However, when the peacock walks, its tail sweeps the ground so that the people coming after don't know where the peacock went. Yeah. But if you walk like an elephant or stomp like an elephant, I don't care if the elephant tiptoes, that there's a pathway for them to come. And I think that those of us who are elders, I'm an elder in training, but I've been the director of the African Institute for 20 years. So it's almost time for me to make way for somebody else. So I need to continue to stomp that path, but then leave a tradition and memory behind for the youth who take my place to them become the ones who take the place. So we need to have all across in our churches and our businesses and our governance, we need to have what we call succession plans. We need to plan for the change and transformation for the next generation. We have to provide space for the next generation to come in and take our places so that they then, they won't necessarily do it in the ways that we do it, but they're going to do things that are going to be transformative. And if we support them as opposed to just being in their path, we need to move out the way and let them come in and guide them to success.
What concrete commitments would you like to see emerge from this 9th Pan-African Congress? What should be written into a collective agenda?
I mean, we had a youth that came and gave a intervention yesterday. Although I think now the time is for us to have a youth Congress and youth can't pay for it, so that we have to pay for it. They are not going to be able to travel around the world because they're starting their careers, but they have ideas and they have some limited resources. So we need to think about how can we develop a conference or a Congress like this that pulls together African youth from all across the globe and that puts them on the stage, that puts them as the moderators, that puts them in all the places. And then those of us who are elders support them in the background so that they have counsel as they're doing it. But we begin to do that. And then the next part of it is that we don't just do it one time, that we then have in 6 months, we invite a contingent of them back. And then in 6 months after that, we invite a different contingent from the beginning back again. So now we have a year's worth that, and then in 2 years, we have a follow-up. And then that means you have continuity. And then on that 2-year point, they're going to report back what they've been doing as African youth around the globe. And we then can build momentum with the youth doing the things that they've done. We have to look. The youth are always been the ones who've been in the lead of the struggle. Look at Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They were in their 20s when they started. They both died in their 30s, right? Yeah. And so when we think about who really are the leaders of movements, the leaders of things, we have to see that the youth actually are there. We just don't provide, once we now in a different space and time, we don't provide space for them. And because they're brash maybe, or they don't fit within the political context. Maybe they don't know or appreciate even the ways in which we have protocol. So they don't understand or see those things. However, they are willing to push the envelope. And if we're willing to actually go to the next level as Africans, as Pan-Africanists, then that's going to be the pathway.
That's very, very interesting. And for a final question for the youth, as we're talking about youth,
yes.
What is your message to younger generation of Pan-Africanists? What path should they follow? And what legacy should they carry forward?
Yeah. So for the youth, I say, listen, you are courageous. You have ideas about how to move forward, but don't think that you know everything. And be willing to listen and be coachable by elders. Doesn't mean you have to follow all of the elders' steps, but be willing to listen. I have a poem I wrote many years ago. It's called An Ode to Clarity. It goes like this. If you listen, you may hear. If you hear, you may understand. But if you don't listen, you can't hear. And if you can't hear, you won't understand. So sometimes we listen only at the ear level, but it doesn't get to our head and to our heart. I think we have three centers as humans. We have our head, our heart, and our gut. And we have to combine the marriage between those three things. The head is the one that analyzes. The heart is the emotive thing that gives you the emotional signal where to go. And the gut is the instinct. You're tapping into the ancestors at your gut level. And so then when you make decisions and you use all three of those, we're much more balanced. If you're using one of those, you might think you're on the right path, but you're not actually balanced. And so then I think that if we can teach the youth those kinds of things, then they can be balanced in their decisions and be wiser in leading us forward.
Thank you very much for this beautiful and powerful advice. Thank you also for your passion, wisdom, and vision. And may the imprint of your words help us to walk boldly and proudly like elephants.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.